Okay, can we start? And welcome to the, not quite sure what number of meetings this is, but welcome to the Heritage Townscape Committee. It's September meeting. And do we have apologies for absence?
We do, yes, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Black, Councillor Ripley, yes, and Councillor. Thank you. Oh, there. Sorry, Councillor Morehouse as well from Dover District. Councillor Black and Councillor Ripley. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to insert a short introduction for myself, which is basically to remind you of some upcoming dates. The first one I want to remind you about is the planning appeal for the land south of Whitefriars, sometimes called by people Fellowship Walk. That planning appeal is being heard at Whitfield, at the Dover District Council offices at Whitfield, on 2 days, November the 7th and 8th. And I know that a large number of councillors have said that they will be attending. I will be attending. I have said I want to speak, but actually you're not supposed to say you want to speak now, you're supposed to say it when you arrive at the meeting. But I certainly hope to speak as chair of this committee, strongly objecting to this planning appeal, which the town council did strongly object to the planning application when it was first submitted. So those are the first 2 dates which I wanted to remind you all of. The second date I wanted to remind you about was a walkabout for town councillors, not just from this committee, on September the 16th, that's Saturday, I think it's 11 o'clock in the morning, 11:30, when we will look with the voluntary tree warden at tree planting plans. We'll also look at the moat, as we're beginning to call it now, and ideas about that. And then at the end of this agenda, the town council, the town clerk has mentioned the Dover District Council local plan examination, which is covered in attachment 5, and she and I have just had a word about this, and there are specific dates in those documents which refer to Sandwich specifically, and the town clerk has said that she will give those dates at the next meeting of the town council. So that's a reminder about those dates, and I think they're mostly end November, early December, the particularly relevant date. And then just to remind you that you are all invited. The Association of Jewish Refugees is bringing a group down to Sandwich. Not all of you know, some of you may, that there was on the edge of Sandwich, just across the toll bridge in 1939 to 40, a refugee camp for 4,000 German-speaking Jewish men, all from Greater Germany, that is Germany and Austria, many of them straight out of concentration camps. And on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, September 13th, a group is coming. Many of them will be, and I do know them, descendants of men who were kept in that camp. And you are, well, they weren't kept, they weren't confined, it wasn't a prison camp, they could wander about Sandwich at will. You are invited to join us at about 10 to 2 in the courtroom, and there they will hear from me and hear from others about the camp, and I will then take them on a tour of Sandwich, showing them Kitchener Camp relevant sites. So that's all I wanted to say. So if we could move on to declarations of interest. No? Okay. Item 3, co-op teams. The town clerk to share a verbal update on
Yes.
potential co-op teams.
Thank you, Chair. So I have approached 3 people by email and I haven't had a response yet. So I will be updating the committee at the next meeting with hopefully the outcomes of those tentative inquiries.
Yes, because we did have this discussion about somebody representing the Sandwich Environment Conservation Group and whether they could circulate and so on. Councillor Mallett.
Okay, I went to the SECG meeting, the last one, and they were very interested in having a representative here, but they were very mindful that they wouldn't be able to have the same person each time. And would the committee allow for SECG to have somebody who might change?
Yeah. Well, we had this discussion at the last meeting. My personal view is that's fine if they recognise they won't have any continuity, and that might be a problem for them. But the town clerk has written to them, have you?
Yes, so
Yes.
I've contacted 3 individuals that we discussed their names, and obviously I'm not awaiting response, but I'll feed back to the next committee meeting with the outcome of those tentative inquiries.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 4, minutes of the Heritage Townscape Committee. These are the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of July. Councillor Shupin.
I've just picked out a few things that I'm interested in. It doesn't mean to say that they're of interest to everybody, but I just wanted to ask some questions around some of the actions. I suppose a sort of general comment is that this committee particularly has a significant number of actions that have been identified, which I suppose illustrates the opportunity that we want to explore for Sandwich itself, but it does feel like we're sort of carrying a lot of baggage around in terms of actions, and we might want to, at a meeting, actually decide how we're going to hone that down, because if not, we're going to go through a longer and longer list, and I look at tonight's agenda, there's a lot more on there that will result in actions. Putting that context, a couple of things that I wanted to ask about were, sorry to start off with it, the toilets. At the last meeting, Town Park, you did say that you would get towards the top of the list between the last meeting and this meeting. I don't know if it has yet.
So we're talking about the automatic opening?
Yes, the disabled toilets.
So I have contacted the company and they are going to do a site visit to tell me what the process is and how much the cost will be to disable that, and then that will be a report.
Fantastic. This one is really important. It's a tourist information centre. We don't seem to have necessarily grabbed it as a project activity in terms of how we're going to tackle it. So just want to know, is it being considered about how we might progress it? I know we're moving out of the tourist season, so it gives us some time, but actually it's a bit of a knotty problem that we want to get right.
Yeah. Well, I had rather assumed that the tourism forum, which will be set up after the council meeting, hopefully, because our minutes will go, which include all our recommendations, will go to the next town council meeting, and hopefully then the tourism forum will start operating. That's how I understand it, and information is an absolutely crucial part of that operation.
I think one of the biggest drawbacks is the lack of staff we've had. You know, once we get the staffing done, we can get that desk manned 7 days a week, 5 days perhaps, you know, with paid staff, and perhaps volunteers on Saturdays and Sundays. So that, but until I think we get all the staffing levels arranged, I think we're bashing it against a brick wall.
And I'd like to think we'd look at it maybe innovatively, because actually just saying we want a desk may not be the best solution we want to promote.
Desk. Oh, is that what you said? Sorry.
Yeah, so there are options. Staff is really important,
Yes.
but how we sell the tourist offer is important as well.
Well, we do have Councillor Wiles's very valuable report on tourism information, and that does lay out many options. And Carol George has just sent me some photos of some really interesting,
Yes, I've seen them as well. That was my point.
really fascinating
Yes.
little people on bikes and
Yes.
yeah,
People on bikes and just ones that are freestanding, they just wheel them out,
Yeah.
and it just says information centre, and it can, and a volunteer could sort of stand in the on the forecourt, or they could take it down to the quay or wherever you wanted it. We don't know whether DDC would pay for it, but it doesn't look to be incredibly expensive either.
So the point being, let's not be constrained
Oh,
about
not at
what
all.
happened in the past with me. Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
Just a couple of other things you've picked off on my next ones around the forum itself, but just a very simple one. The important one is the cost of repairs for the wall next to Simba. We've had that sitting there for a number of months. Fortunately, the wall's still there, but we do need to think about that.
We do.
And then just very finally, I just wanted to make sure that last meeting we said there was a real priority discussion needed around the Moat Park project, and that's how we were framing that time. There is a paper here, item 6, and I wanted to make sure all that we discussed last time is that clearly dropped into that agenda item.
Yes.
So that was around the around Parks Green and the Moat Park project itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? So, does the committee accept the minutes as an accurate account?
Yes.
That's frankly proposed.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Shall we all vote?
Thank you.
Okay, item 5. Public participation. A 15-minute session is set aside for members of the public to make representations. Do we have?
I believe Councillor Gray. Yeah.
They can hear me.
They
can hear you.
Good evening. I'd like to bring this committee up to date with where we are with the Sandwich Heritage Harbour Trust. First, we have formed ourselves into an incorporated charity, the chair being Councillor Franklin, and the other trustees being Robert Haldon, who is ex-chairman of the Sandwich Port and Haven Commission, Paul Damon, who is the trustee of the Sandwich Medieval Trust, myself, and ex-town councillor Claire Felton. Sandwich was the 4th town to be designated as a heritage harbour by the national charity, the Maritime Heritage Harbour Trust, who initiated this scheme and who have now begun a nationwide promotion of 10 of the heritage harbours, including, I'm pleased to say, Sandwich. Next Friday, we're going to receive a delegation from several trustees of the Maritime and Heritage Trust. They want to see the facilities that we can offer here for heritage vessels and to learn more about our plans. This is one result of our efforts to date, and the press release which I have handed out to you explains what we and the other heritage harbours nationally are trying to achieve. Our difficulty is that until we know just what Dover District Council proposed to do with the quay, it is exceedingly hard to attract heritage vessels to Sandwich. Generally, in the UK and on the continent, harbours offer free moorings for heritage vessels, and we must be able to do likewise. But DDC so far does not seem prepared to consider this, despite lobbying from us and lobbying from the Port and Haven Commission. There's also the problem with the rampant spread of reeds in the river and the lack of dredging, which is narrowing the navigable parts of the river, and meanwhile the quay remains virtually unused. As to progress, you will know the Council has agreed in principle to lease the Fishergate to us, to open as a small visitor centre, and we are keen to proceed with this. We need this committee's help and that of the whole Council, and particularly the new Tourism Committee or Forum, I'm not quite sure what its exact structure is going to be, to promote our heritage harbour status to local businesses and to visitors. As you can see from the press release I've handed out, we have developed a heritage harbour logo, and we would like to see businesses in the town and other organisations adopt and use this logo in their publicity material so our status gets widely displayed. I'd like to see our logo prominently displayed in the town, on the quay, on the swing bridge and elsewhere. As an example of the sort of thing that can be done, if you now drive into Wells Neck to Sea in Suffolk, which is another heritage harbour, the road sign says Wells Neck to Sea, and under it in big letters, a heritage harbour town. That's the sort of thing I would like to see us doing here. Finally, we need volunteers, so if you know of people who are interested in the town's maritime history and heritage, please ask them to contact us. We would also ask that we all try to prevail on DDC to agree to sit down and discuss with us the future of the quay, for the whole of this depends on us sorting something out with them. Thank you very much.
Clark, can I ask you a question, please?
Yes.
So, no disrespect to Councillor Gray. So, obviously, the public participation is meant for the members of the public. I've asked many a few times, to speak in public participation in council meetings, have been declined. So, can I ask why Councillor Gray has been I know it's separate to do with the harbour heritage, and I appreciate that, but I've been wanting to speak about some things of public participation, and I've been declined on several occasions.
So Councillor Gray did email me a request, so he did that through the process. If he was here as a resident, is my understanding, because he's part of this harbour heritage, I addressed him as councillor because he is a councillor.
Yeah, that's fine. But as I said, I've asked on numerous occasions to speak at public participation as a resident as well, and I've been declined.
I think this is a conversation that should take place in another context.
I'm just making
that-
it that clear that it's public participation is for residents, and he is a resident, I appreciate that. Part of Heritage Harbour, and it's a great speech, what you said. However, I wanted to speak on several occasions at public participation, and I've been declined at several occasions.
I think we've heard that. We've heard that now, and I think
I'm just making it clear for
yes,
everybody to
you
know.
have made it clear. Thank you very
Thank you very
much,
much.
Councillor. Okay, thank you.
Are we allowed to ask a question?
Well, this is something I really don't know. I would like to make a comment on Councillor Gray's contribution, and
Yeah,
Mrs. George would like to ask a question.
I would.
I think.
Is that okay?
Yes.
I heard what you said about Dover sort of not backing down on the funds or the fees they get for mooring, but actually how much have they received in the past few years? Because there have been, apart from the P23, it's called, which I hate, but anyway, hardly anything ever comes. We did have it. There were quite a few Dutch and French-Belgian boats there for a weekend, but hardly anything was there. So how much are they actually getting in fees from that stretch of the water?
I have absolutely no idea.
Maybe it's a question we can ask.
It's very little.
Yeah.
But they seem to guard the key and think it's a valuable income producer for them. But it's not. Half the time, nobody pays the fees. They're invited to telephone Dover Council if they wish to pay fees. There was a delegation of 13 yachts from the Blackwater, and fees were actually collected, but the harbour master collected the fees, not Dover Council. So I can't answer your question.
I've also got a question about the P22, whether they pay mooring fees, because I'm curious about that.
Yeah, they do.
Yes,
They
they
do.
They pay over to the council.
They pay more in fees at a reduced rate.
At a reduced rate.
Charity.
And the Nicholas and Medieval Trawler, they also pay more in fees at a reduced rate.
And the comment I wanted to make was that we are, as a committee, going to this evening talk about priorities for work that we will do over the next 2 years. And one of the items, and it's based on a paper which I wrote, and one of the items is about what we do with the river. But this committee will have to decide, the river and the quay, and we'll have to decide whether that's top priority or not, because we can't do everything, and there are other things that we'll want to do as well. Okay. Item 6, the Town Walls Parkland. Councillor Mallet to share a report that considers a submission made by Mr. Steve, who is actually Dr. Stephen Fuller, in relation to the town walls and their future. Members are invited to consider the recommendation and the working group is formed and this is agreed by council. And that's attachment 2. I'd like to just say myself that I think, because we are going to be talking under item 6, I think it is, where my paper is listed. Item 11, sorry. About the possibility of having a rather wider project. But I do note that you are making recommendations which I would call, some of them are short-term recommendations and others are much longer term. And I think we should consider the short-term recommendations that you're suggesting under this item and the longer-term ones under item 11, if that's acceptable to you.
Yes, yes. I've got to look and see which are the short term, which are
Well, I've sort of identified them myself.
yes, yes.
So approach I mean the first action that you recommend is approach DVC to plant saplings to replace missing trees.
Yes, I did a walkthrough of the. I'm not going to call it. I'm very cautious about calling it Moat Park because I live near Maidstone. Moat Park, yes, is Maidstone.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're talking about the
town walls.
the
Town walls.
ditch or the
Yes.
town
The town walls. Basically, if you walk around, you'll see a number of trees missing, which don't look like they're missing because the trees are large, the existing trees are very large, and they fill up the space. But one day they will fall down, and we are, I think, better off having a process to replace so that there's always trees there. We're looking at 100 years' time, maybe, before they will actually show as being valid. I think they're plane trees, aren't they?
There is I was just going to say, because that's the ancient town walk, and they were part after the Victorian time, I think Dover District Council have got a policy that are not to be planted. Because they're worried about the roots damaging the ancient town wall.
There
When
are,
that question's been asked before.
right, because there are some what look like saplings which have been chopped. So that's,
You
yes.
get that confirmed, that's what I have.
Right, well, we need to talk with DPC about
Where they
their
are
policy,
replaced.
because they're responsible for maintaining that
Yeah,
space.
but they're not going to replace any gaps, you know, I'm looking for.
Yes, so we need urgently to find out what their policy is as far as maintenance is concerned.
Yes.
So perhaps that is something, I thought, that you could ask them about.
Yes, I think this is a legacy thing.
Yes.
Because in 100 years' time, people will look back and say, why do we have no trees?
Well, quite.
Well, they never did before Victorian times.
No.
The Victorians, they planted trees everywhere, didn't they?
Yes,
You know,
well,
and now they want to get it back to how it should be, open space with the walls.
well,
It
there
doesn't
are other
really
questions
some
to
of those
plant trees
trees.
now,
That's not
other
mine.
reasons to plant
Yes.
trees as well.
Yeah. The second action that I put down was with regard to improved signage, and that
Yes.
is mostly online, because things change, people have different views, and it would potentially take so long to get an agreed text that it is far easier to have something online that can be changed, that people can add to. We are working on the new website, and it might well be that that's the appropriate place to have it, or it might be that a subsequent project to look at an informational website, rather than this is the town council, this is what we do, etc.
Right, but I think it's a very good idea to have QR codes. I mean, they wouldn't be very, obvious.
Yes,
would they?
yes.
They would.
It's the nature of, if you have a QR code, all it is, it's what we would call a URL, a website name. So you have bbc.co.uk slash, if you look, there's numbers. It's not, or sometimes you might have slash Kent, slash then more numbers. As numbers, and with a website that can evolve, those numbers get lost. So you might eventually have, let's say, the mill ball relating to Gays and Salts, because the website's changed. And it's making sure that we have a very defined way of linking the informational page online with the QR code.
But where would a QR code be placed? On the tree itself?
My view is that it can be placed in many ways, whether it's a sticker, whether it's a tile, because you can have them as tiles, you could have them as posters, back of t-shirts, or on a tree, maybe as some kind of plate.
Okay.
But the QR code can be, is an image, and that image can be used in many ways. And it's a simple way of doing it.
Well, do you want to make a proposal that we can vote on? Yes.
Oh, sorry, I just wanted to, if I may interrupt, Lady Chairman. What I was going to say was, had you spoken to Dover District Council about all these items that you're putting forward?
Not right now.
Oh, right. Could I just say, sort of many years ago, Dover District Council got something like £2.8 million grant to spend on green areas. And at the time I was a Dover District Councillor, and they came and made a presentation in the council chamber, and they said, so we've got £2.8 million, we want to spend that on some green areas that we can enhance to the benefit of local residents. And in a nutshell, to make this quite quick, obviously being a very eager Sandwich Dover District Councillor, I was jumping up and down in my seat saying, oh, I know somewhere, and I put forward the idea of the joining up all the green areas on the town walls. Unfortunately, there was like a presupposition that several of the councillors from the Conservative group had already chosen Kersney Abbey and Bushy Rough down in Dover for the night to go to. But afterwards, Councillor Sue Chandler came up to me and she said, oh, but don't worry, Paul, because when we get further funding, she said, we've already got a scheme to join up the areas of the town wall in Sandwich, and we've got strategy to enhance it. And one of the things was not actually for the trees, but actually for the history. They're going to have, as we've got now, history plates with QR codes on. But I was just wondering, before we sort of start all over again, I just wondered if Dover District Council has still got that strategy, because I saw pictures and diagrams which showed how they were going to enhance joining up all the green areas. I just wondered if somebody wanted to make an approach to them.
They have got a green ring round Sandwich.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Gays and Salts,
Exactly.
Norway, and they've got to work, so there's this green ring, that's why they're very wary. I know the only bit we've got is cow's knees, and that's what we're going about. We're going to put a hedge there, aren't we?
Yeah.
But and also I was going to say, in 1991, talk about signage, there were fingerboards. You remember there was still a little fingerboard? A lot of them were broken, haven't they? You know, at the end there.
Yes.
And they were quite a good idea. So I think perhaps we could ask them if we could get the fingerboards done.
And because it's DDC property, why should Sandwich Town Council be outlaying any of our meagre precept on something that Dover District Council should really, all very well we could put the ideas forward, but we should really be looking for Dover District Council to provide the funding for this.
Yes.
That's what I
Yes,
would say.
if they can provide funding, and we can maybe use that elsewhere as well.
Indeed, yeah. But I just wanted to assist with
Yes.
taking
Well,
this
I
on.
think it's very important, I'll come to you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's very important that we do establish the territory, as it were, and what has happened in the past, what plan is on the books. And if that's at Dover District Council, that's where we need to go. So I think the first action has to be that the town clerk writes to Dover District Council and asks about this plan. I don't know what it's called, a green town wall or something, whatever it's called, we get to the bottom of this, we find out what they've got in mind, and you report back to us at the next meeting. I'm going to take Mrs. George first, then Councillor Marie, then Councillor Allen.
The plan that you were talking about, we were approached, Sandwich and Bloom was approached, and I think we might be going back 7 years to join up, because they were looking at parks originally, and then they said, right, Sandwich can't be divided up, it would be better to make the whole of the town walls a park. So it was all going to be designated park area, so you walked around the whole town. However, I made inquiries, because we were asked when we wanted to put sort of foliage and bushes and flowers and things on that walk. But when I asked last year about it, they said that money was no longer there. This was from Councillor Chandler, said that that scheme was not available anymore because, but it, I still think it is worth asking those questions, but just a bit of history there.
The plans and
Yeah,
the mapping.
it was all there.
Plans and the maps are still there.
Yeah.
We could,
Okay. Councillor Marie, and then Councillor Maddox, and then I myself.
Yes, regarding the town trail, now I do believe, now the town trail, the inserts in the town trails, they are quite weathered, and I do believe before the elections that the BBC were talking about replacing them, and they were putting QR codes in with them. Now maybe if, I'm not sure what the new administration are doing about it, but maybe we could have a conversation then and see if they are doing the QR codes to put in the trees and stuff in with it, with their QR codes to tell the history of the trail.
I could just
Well,
reply briefly on that.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, John Hennessy said they've already produced them
All right.
because he was asked from the History Society if they would like to actually vet the information that's gone on. Stoke District Council apparently have produced them, and I think they're going to replace them quite shortly.
I mean, that's a different issue, that there are going to be new signs. I don't know whether the QR codes are going to come to our website or to the DDC website, and that really is rather an important issue, but it's not central to what we're talking about at the moment, but we need to check that too. So perhaps you could talk to them about the new signs and whether the QR codes will come to our website and theirs. It's much better if they go to theirs. Council
Yeah, it was just with
take
regard,
the eyes.
sorry, with regard to the cure. Well, certainly with regard to funding, the message I got back, now that we talk about just the informational side, was that Kearsley Abbey used up the money. There wasn't any left, but who knows, there might be.
Yes, but we don't necessarily have to rely on DDC funding because there's other funding from other bodies, particularly the Heritage Lottery Fund.
Yes,
And if we could combine with DDC to put in a really good application, and then a Heritage Lottery Fund like multiple organisations working together. So that would, if we can work together, then that would be the way to proceed.
yes, and with regard to the QR codes, wherever they're produced, if they are consistently just the walls, and we want to put them potentially around the town, how do we do that?
Yes, well, that's a
We
technical
need to
question
talk to.
too, yes. But for the moment, I think we just need to get where we are as far as DDC is concerned, a green sandwich, and when we come to item 11, start thinking about whether we want to set up a working group to look at alternative ways of proceeding, including putting together applications to the Heritage Lottery Fund and so on. Okay. Is there anybody else who wants to? Yes.
Mine's a general comment, but I think it's relevant as we move through this meeting that I refer to it in terms of all the baggage, I call it, we've got. From a visibility perspective, it might be really good if we agree to build a view of all the items, because we've got going off in different directions with things, and sometimes things are going to cross over and we'll lose track. It would be really good, I think, if this committee had its priorities, and I know you're going to come on to 11, but actually has it visible, and we actually then, as a group, agree what's short term, what's medium term, what's long term, And then alongside that, where individuals will own those activities and where they will go. Because you've already mentioned a number of avenues of potential funding streams. This is very complicated.
It is very
And I think we need to get a visible tracker that we can come back to each meeting and say, this one's moving on, this one's stuck, this one we want to close down.
Yeah.
That's my personal view.
No, I quite agree.
Because my head is
Absolutely.
bursting with all the opportunities.
Absolutely. I think the only action we so far agreed was for the town clerk to check out the BBC.
Yes.
I think as far as the QR code is concerned, we need, I had thought they would just refer to trees, but now they're talking about a broader aspect. Then Cowleys, you've said you haven't got an action. Oh yes, we go to Cowleys. Well, that is happening already. So we'll be looking at what can or can't be done there. And I know that the committee will have members who will disagree about what can and can't be done, but that's what the committee is for. I'm not sure that there are any other short-term...
There was Millwall.
Yes.
Again, walking, doing the walk. It needs a lot of care and maintenance.
It does.
Certainly where the walk is, you're pushed by various trees towards the precipice. And I think for some, I don't mind, but I think some people might find that a little bit daunting.
I know disabled people are.
Yeah. And with regard to the maintaining the tree and the undergrowth area, potentially decide it's a wildlife area, so we can't go there, or that it's to be maintained and manicured. But fundamentally, my view is wildlife.
I can just answer on that. A couple of years ago, because it did used to be pristine grass on town walls all the time, and they started to let it get a bit over, and I thought it looked unkempt, and I thought, so I reported it to the EDC, and they came back and they said, that they're wilding that part of the walls there, and I said, come on, obviously it'd be nice to wild some areas, but this is the town's heritage and prestige, and it used to look beautiful when it was all kept nice and tidy. And even the saplings, there were some sapling trees that were planted by the little, depends what people call, we always called it the Witch's Bridge that goes across, but there was some saplings that were put in there, 3 saplings, and unfortunately some youths or somebody unfortunately broke them off, and I said, can they be replaced but with guards around them? And they said, no, we're not replacing them. So I did make efforts for the trees and for the wilding area, and that's the answer they gave me. That was about two or 3 years ago now.
I think the irony there is that the trees can grow wild and disturb the town walls, but they can't be planted.
Councillor Marie, and then I'm going to, Councillor Sackett, and then I'm going to bring this conversation to a halt. I have an idea.
Yeah, just quickly, the Millwall, after the elections, myself and Co had a walk around the town, and had a walk around regarding the Millwall, and it's been put, the Sandwich Community Caretaker Scheme have been working hard and to ensure, starting to cut back some of that stuff on the pathways so it's easy access. We can't go down the dip because it's a health and safety aspect for volunteers.
Okay, thank you.
I was just going to say, there was an agreement that there was going to be a wildflower, like a meadow garden, but they haven't touched it now, it's full of brambles.
Yeah.
And if you do a wildflower, it still requires cutting twice a year, which they haven't done, they just don't go well. So
Absolutely, yes. The place is a shambles.
it is terrible.
Complete shambles.
Yeah.
What I'm going to suggest, and I hope you'll agree, is that we invite whoever it is, and I have no idea who it is, from BBC to come to this committee to tell us what their plans are and what they do. Because if you walk around the town walls right now, it really all looks awful. And is a worry, I think, because I think the brambles are stifling the trees. And I think we'll pick up on that on September 16th. So would you agree that that would be, I don't know who the person is, or the
It would be the Parks and Open Spaces Officer of BDC,
Yeah.
and it would also be the Heritage Officer because it's a heritage area.
Yes. Well, perhaps, would you agree that that would be a good idea, that we get them to come and talk to this committee?
And maintain the programme.
Yes.
It was Roger's area.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
And
Yeah.
to Bella from Roger.
Okay, so I'm proposing that. Anybody second
I'll
that?
second that.
Okay, can we vote? So, Town Clerk, if you could write and say, we're very concerned about our green spaces, could they come and tell us what they're doing about them? And hopefully at the next meeting in October. Thank you. Okay, I think perhaps we've talked, have we?
Yes,
Good,
I
thank you.
could talk on, but...
No, I think
No,
you
it's-
want to get on.
Yes.
So, item 7, also Councillor Mallet, infrared camera provision report. Councillor Mallet's share report with the committee in terms of one item taken for consideration from the SECG report, the proposal for a thermal imaging camera to be purchased by STC to be used by volunteers to capture thermal images. And it's attachment 3. And I don't know if you just want to quickly introduce it and then people can comment.
Yes, very, very simply, it's that physically it is a camera that looks like a sort of gun with a flat. Well, there are many, many different formats they come in, but fundamentally you point it at, in this case, a house with the central heating on a cold day, and you can see where the house is losing heat, generally through the windows, through the roof, and potentially through unexpected cracks. And you can then you can then say to the homeowner or to the householder, this is where you're losing heat. Possibly you can tell them how to mitigate against it, or you might point to a resource that says, if you're losing heat here, this is what you can do. And it just works like a camera, but it uses heat rather than light.
It's, in other words, it's a diagnostic tool.
It is, yes.
But I would like to say that you can take a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink.
Absolutely.
And,
I totally agree.
you haven't given us any evidence as to actions that households take as a consequence of
No,
having
this is an argument I had with SECG. SECG were insistent that one had to advise the householder what to do. My view was that if you do that, you lay yourself open to, but that didn't work. And when it comes to central heating and loss of heat, it's down, almost down to the individual. It feels a bit warmer. Well, yes, maybe it feels a bit warmer.
Yes, that wasn't actually what I was saying. But Councillor Schuster.
I love gadgets. However, I'm not convinced. So if you go around Sandwich, where I live in a very old house, heat escapes. But I've had to accept that, as the rest of the family have, because it's the nature of the house. We've also got lots of other houses that are much more modern, that heat will not escape. I'm telling somebody at the door, you're doing really well, going to chili cooking. So I'm really struggling with the business case for it, and also whether it's an STC responsibility for knocking on people's doors and saying, you are losing heat. That's just my opinion.
Yes, also, that's the whole question of the amount of money it costs not to use heat.
Yes.
It's really very, very Councillor Marie and then Councillor Carson.
That was my next point, Councillor Anderson, is the pricing for it. Where will the money come from? Is it going to come out of the taxpayers' precepts, or is it going to come out of the toll? I'm just saying, or is it coming out because it is STC to purchase one? Or maybe a trial, maybe from the companies to borrow one as a trial and see how they work, to learn how they work, or loan from Warmer Town Council if they have one.
That's not the point I'm making.
No.
The point I'm making is you can demonstrate that you're using heat, but it then costs many thousands of pounds to install secondary double glazing and people just don't have that sort of money. I mean, and so I think the take-up would be extremely, of action as a consequence of the diagnosis would be extremely low.
Thank you, yes. So Dover District Council and Kent County Council do have schemes every winter where they are targeting people that do have this similar situation where they are losing, and there's usually grants and things. So I think maybe this could be something that could be progressed when you know that there are grants available, and maybe working collaboratively with DDC or KCC to signpost people to this money that's available. That could be something which is, if members were minded to.
And this is money for insulation?
Yes.
But not in great sorrow.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I'll have Councillor Carter, then Mrs George, and then
Thank
Councillor
you.
Tompkins.
Yeah, I was just going to say this. I did see this scheme being used very successfully up at Canterbury City Council, and I was working for the environmental protection, environmental health up there. But they did use it for the public housing. So they were going around all the housing estates using it for public housing. And obviously they were implementing through grants what to do there. I believe Deal, did you say Deal? Walmart, is it? Yeah, I was going to say, I knew one of the other councils locally had one. And I've got two things to say about this. First of all, one is if we were to buy one, I think we need to slap our name all over it, because as Councillor Franklin will tell you, many years ago, Sandwich Town Council actually bought a SID, speed indicator device, and we gave it to the Kent Police Force, and they didn't really use it. And then they transferred it over to Deal Police Station, and of course, as everybody knows, Deal Police Station closed down, and now I've been told it's been transferred to another police station, but they don't know where. But it is our property, and we'd like it back.
And bikes.
And our bikes. But the other matter I was going to say was I think this is an excellent scheme. I think it's a really good idea, and I think Sandwich Town Council should be seen. I was one of the ones that proposed and pushed through about the climate emergency, and saying that Sandwich Town Council should declare a climate change emergency. And I think that we've declared an emergency, but what have we done about it? We haven't done anything. Now, the way I see things is, as I said in my speech for the annual general meeting, Sandwich Town Council goes above and beyond the services we're meant to provide as a town council anyway, and I think we always will, because we're a superior council and we think so much for our residents. But I think if we could look at another way of providing this service, then we should. So I'm thinking that possibly whether that's with Warmer, so if Warmer are not using theirs 7 days a week, would they lend it to us for a very small charge? Could we make a very small charge to householders to recoup some costs on this? So I think really it needs to be scoped out a lot stronger. So what would we use it for? What would be the take-up for it? Could we make a charge for the service? And could it be tied in with somebody from Dover District Council, the environmental protection side, who could then advise on grants for, as the town clerk said, because these grants go in cycles. So I had a phone call recently and they said, oh, we're working on behalf of Dover District Council to do loft insulation. Did you want your loft, insulated for a minimal cost, So I think if we do that, but I would be very positive, so I would support a proposal to investigate the use of this device, and I think Sandwich Town Council should be seen to be looking for this service for our residents. So, and particularly Sandwich South, in Sandwich North, I'm sorry to say, but you all live in very old, drafty houses and you've got to put up with it.
We're not allowed
No,
to
exactly.
visible double glazing.
But I would propose that we look into investigate that. I think
Yes, okay.
Tom Lynns, that's
Yeah, I think it's already been said really. I think I really celebrate what the town clerk has said about making the information about what's available in terms of grants. Because if you go looking for it, you end up down a rabbit hole. You end up with numbers and you don't know if they're private companies and nobody seems to know. So I think that's a very valuable approach, and whether the two things could be married at some point.
Yes.
But that, and hopefully with the, you know, the website, and that will be information that will be far more accessible, it will be really useful for people.
Yes, yes.
I'm concerned that we're raising an expectation from householders, perhaps in the way that Councillor Shuker said. You tell them this is what's wrong, and it doesn't matter whether it's north or south. It's probably more complicated in the interior, because I've looked at those grants and I've applied for grants even for filling some of the walls, and no, because I'm a listed building. So I think we raise expectations, then we're asked where do we get it from, and then will it be perceived as a sort of a waste of money and something gimmicky that I don't know, but it doesn't sound quite right.
What would be helpful is to get some feedback from one, if
Yeah.
they've already purchased one, and see how successful it has been in terms of its usage, because that's where we should start from.
I mean, there's the usage of the equipment, but there's also the action to do something. I mean, the equipment, as I've said, is a diagnostic tool. It's not actually going to insulate your house.
No.
And your own money is going to insulate your house, and that's a worry.
I think the concern, what I've heard, is reasons based on Sandwich North.
No,
Sandwich
not at all.
South.
Sandwich South is much more likely
Sandwich South is the
to
target.
have low income.
Though I would say Sandwich North, one of the things that I've noticed with regard to Grade 2 listed is, for example, as has been said, there's limited things that you can do, such as double glazing, because of DDC. Other district councils allow double glazing.
Yes, well, I've got it on under item 11 that we talked to DDC about their policy.
And I would suggest that being able to go over a winter and show that Sandwich North is just leaching heat through every window imaginable gives an argument to say, you know, you've got to relax these rules, because we're protecting, if you'll pardon me saying this, we're protecting an ancient town that's going to be underwater if we don't do something.
Absolutely, it is.
Would you have to be invited by the householder to do that though? Because you couldn't just walk down the street
No,
and
you
can't.
I would have it so that you would be invited.
And I think it's probably the dead horse with the old town, because it's not only district council, it's English heritage, isn't it? It's all going the arts, you know, that sort of thing. And if they say you can't have double glazing, you can't have double glazing. And a lot of these walls are solid walls as well, aren't they? They're not cavity walls. So the heat just goes through the wall and out, and comes in.
So, where do you want to go with this? I mean, we have a proposal that we purchase or investigate purchasing. Well, a proposal from Councillor Mallet that we investigate purchasing such equipment. Is that what you would like to propose?
That's what I would like to propose. And alternatively, either borrow or have further discussions with Walnut and work out, have an idea of the uptake.
Well, it's not just the uptake. It's not the uptake of the actual equipment. It's doing something as a consequence of using it.
If I may, sorry, I was going to say, because my proposal, which, you know, if Councillor Mallet was happy with, was actually to investigate the whole thing. I did say to scope it out. Now, in order to scope something out, you would have all the key experts to produce that scope. So, would it be worthwhile purchasing it? Would it be worthwhile leasing it? Or borrowing one from Walmer? What would be the take up on this? So, it needs an investigation. So, I think possibly one or two councillors could look into this, So I would propose one or two councillors pop off, make some investigations, and then come back to this committee and report back to this committee with further evidence of whether or not it's useful. Starting off with Walmer Council, but also including Dover District Council, how it could tie in with the grants there. So that would be what I would put forward.
Okay. Does anybody want to second that?
Yeah, let me second that, because that
Okay.
seems a sensible way
So-
forward.
So shall we vote on that? That one or two councillors take this
So
up,
have a look at it,
Yes.
investigate.
Yes.
investigate it
Yes.
further,
Yeah.
Not
not
saying
just
no,
take up
but-
of the equipment, but
Yeah.
action as a consequence.
Yes.
And
No investigate.
Councillor Mallet, would you be prepared to do that?
Yes, I'll leave that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I did say I'd support, earlier, I did say I'd support Councillor Mallet, so if I can work with him, not during office hours, but outside office hours, I'll be happy to support him.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Item 8, street furniture. A, Town Clerk to share a verbal report on progress with contact with DVC in relation to the painting of street furniture and memorial benches.
Thank you, Chair. So I have approached the officer at Dover District Council. I said that could we have an exploration of working collaboratively for street furniture about future maintenance and how we can potentially work together, particularly around painting of street furniture. And also I asked about memorial benches. So there is an active inspection regime for street furniture maintenance. Sorry, there isn't. I don't think there is an active inspection regime for street furniture maintenance, but there is an in-house maintenance crew that do undertake painting works of such furniture when required and reported. So in terms of the memorial benches, I need to wait for another officer to get back to me, but they do think that they are still available as far as they know. So as soon as I hear back from that other officer, I'll do another report for this committee. So with the memorial benches, I think members were asking if they are replaced once their life has expired. So that's what I've asked, and I'll get a report to you next meeting, hopefully.
Okay. Do we want to do anything further about talking to DVC about the painting of street furniture? I mean, one does notice that various lampposts are looking pretty shabby, but is it up to us as residents just to wander about and say, there's a lamppost that needs looking after?
Yes, it is.
I would urge people to report, because with all due respect, the officers don't have time to
No.
wander around the towns
No.
and notice everything. So I think, if you do see something, do report it, because then they can, explore whether it's on the programme.
And where should we report it?
I'm happy for people to report it through me, and I'll pass it through.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. George and then Councillor.
When we, I think it was just before COVID, when we walked around the town with Council Chandler, looking, and this was because of Sandwich and Room going to try to enter the competition. It was vast, the amount of things that needed to be done, including painting of lampposts and upgrading of benches and so on. And Councillor Chandler did actually replace a couple of benches, I think in Lane Street and so on. But the view was that if we wanted to do this, there may in theory have been a group that did it in-house, but it was a theory. The better way was for us they would provide the paint, and we should do it. And that was the answer. And in fact, that was the same just before Roger Ragg left. That was exactly, and that was only this year, I think, at DVC. That was exactly what the philosophy was, because they hadn't got the staff in-house to do this. There is a group, but they're stretched across the whole district. So, I think it is worth reporting. I agree with it. Like, we should continue to report, because actually they did replace a bench this year on the rope walk that was was dangerous actually. They just came along and replaced it. So I think we have to understand the expectations.
There's a whole question of getting up to the top of the ladder.
Exactly, yeah.
Yes, can I have Councillor Schuker?
So it's just really to echo Carol's point is that maybe we as a council should look at it as one of the work items we put onto our work programme, and we actually do get the paint and we do identify those items that we can do safely, and we do them not to get to the top of lampposts. But there are things that we can do, but it will be like the Forth Bridge. It will be start at one end and we'll never finish. But I think it's again demonstrating what Sandwich Town Council is happy to do, and why not? Reporting it does work, but only to the extent of getting it onto their work programme. Doesn't mean to say it gets done immediately.
I mean, we just had volunteers do the GPO telephone boxes, all painted.
Yes,
They look really nice, don't they?
Yeah.
And there's a bump in the council does say if you want the paint, it's up there, give you the code for the door. I think memorial benches, they belong to the families, so you can put them up. I think once they're damaged, they don't replace them. You've only got all along the road walk, even the old council wooden ones that have been broken, as I reported to just before the overhaul. And you walk in, you can see all the empty plinths where seats are missing. So they don't replace them, even the council benches. Like there's a job to get them to put new benches in.
So, are we saying that as a council we would be happy to receive them? Well, we can make a note, tell the town clerk what needs doing, but that at the end of that process, we say to Dover District Council, we want paint for 10 feet of railings and 3 benches, and we tell them what we need in terms of paint. They provide the paint, and then we provide the labour.
So this is the perfect opportunity to promote and advertise for the town sprucer as well, as we've been discussing, part of the restructure. This is the jobs are perfect for a town sprucer to go around and to do this, and I think maybe the council as a whole needs to push possibly for an advertisement for one.
Okay, so what we're saying is we want to have a system whereby interested people, and it's not just councillors, it can be town team, anybody, residents, hello residents, go around, and when they see something that needs doing, they send a note to the town clerk, and the town clerk, say in 3 months' time or 2 months' time, puts all that together, and we say to Dover District Council, this is what we need paint for, and these are the colours we want, and please provide, and we then somehow or other produce the labour, whether it's a town sprucer or a volunteer or a town sprucer, but working with volunteers or whatever. Okay.
Sorry, we've also got the community group.
The community caretakers?
Yes.
Yes. Yes,
So
I mean, there are groups around, and there are individuals around. I mean, we know them who go out and paint the phone boxes.
Yes.
So
Sorry, maybe I've lost this or I created in my head in passage of time. Did we say we were going to do a walkabout around the town?
yes, we are. Next
Yes,
Saturday.
thank you. Yeah. If we did a walkabout around the town, we could then compile a list of things.
Yeah.
And then it's, open season in the sense that some groups, individuals could say, I'll take that item and I'll deal with it, as long as the materials are available. There is stuff we probably all do at different times, and I'd certainly be interested and would pick up some of those painting opportunities.
Okay, but not the lampposts, because we can't take responsibility for people
I
falling off
wasn't
ladders.
stretching that far.
We've got 2 meters.
The brilliant up to that
Just
height.
give me that idea.
Thanks.
Okay, so is all that noted?
Yes.
And we don't have to vote?
No, that's fine, I'll go this process.
Okay. Right, so 8B, it says Councillor Anderson to provide a verbal update in relation to additional street furniture for the Guildhall forecourt, sometimes known as the square. Well, it's not me actually, I asked Mrs. George to.
Yes, I don't think I can add an awful lot other than this came about because there are many residents who feel that there are not enough seats on the forecourt, and that the seats, the benches that are there are not that comfortable, but they're there, and I don't think we've got to live with what's there. But there have been suggestions that we put something on the other side of the forecourt, so it doesn't interfere with festivals and all the things that we want to go on the forecourt. We had a conversation with a DDC officer, Jane Miles, who's actually she's Dover District Council Officer, Strategic Place Tourism and Town Centre Manager. She had actually been monitoring our Facebook pages and had seen the problems that were raised by residents, mainly, I have to say, with respect to the fact that Dover District Council supplied us with some planters. However, they were also complaining about the seats. And at the time, she said that some benches were sort of easily available via this group, via her funding. However, we can't just have ordinary benches out there. We need something that's a little bit more tailored to the whole of the new forecourt layout. And that's something that I think we need to decide upon, what it is we would like. Are we able to do it? And I understand we have to ask David Parish still if we're interested in putting more furniture there, or street furniture there, he has to say yay or nay. Then there's the investigation about what type of street furniture you want. I saw some quite nice semicircular benches that were in Canterbury, and actually it's the same sort of wood that we've got on the other side of the Guildhall. So I think it's what do we want? How many do we want? Where should they be placed? Getting permission or the view from Dover District Council that we can do this, and then making some decisions and finding out whether they are willing to help fund or fund some of this. Because we can't, the whole plan that was there originally has been changed anyway since it was there, including on the bus shelter. That's only got 4 seats in it. And so I think we do as a town have to do something, and people are walking through there, and there's an elderly population as well, and so we need to be able to fund it. And the trees are a nice place to sit in the shade as well. So I think the first step is to make sure David Parish is on line with us doing something, and then it's up to the council to decide what.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say I agree that's a really good idea, and I think it's good that you've made inroads. We've got contact at Dover District Council to move this forward, but we all realise we've spent over £1 million on that forecourt out there, and I would like to see some sort of uniformity.
Yeah.
So I've seen the benches you said about, because in Canterbury they've resurfaced their area, and in fact they've got the same benches up in Kingston upon Thames, and they've actually weathered now, so they actually go a sort of silvery grey colour, and their ones up in Kingston upon Thames got the same sort of benches but with planters attached, which actually Canterbury, so which is really nice. But I just wanted to say I'd be very upset to see the sort of benches we've got on this side of the square, and then possibly older style upright backed benches on the other side. So I just wanted to say it'd be nice that for our flagship area, we've got this flagship area now, and I spoke to somebody only a day ago, and they were talking about, they were from Southampton, and they said in Southampton there isn't a central piazza or forecourt or square for people to gather. So we're very lucky that we have got this central Guildhall forecourt, and I think we should, if we do pursue this, then pursue it, but with uniform type furniture. Thank you.
Yes. Councillor
Yes.
Shoeburn.
So I was involved in that informal conversation. There are options out there. Canterbury is a good example because it's the same hostile architecture that exists elsewhere around the country, but in Canterbury, some of the benches are shaped.
Yes,
They're not just oblong. So the design is flexible, but also you can also get other benches that will just complement what we've got. So it isn't, as you say, all going back to old style benches, should we say. There are other ways. There are trees there. You could have wraparounds in terms of seating. So there are options. But I think the first step is to find out from David Parish if it's a runner, and is there an opportunity for some free benches, because that was sort of floated as an idea.
Yeah.
If that's our starting point, then we can build a specification.
Thank you. Councillor Rose.
Yes, thank you, Chair. One thing I need to say before we go any further, and that is as an apology to Councillor Chuka and Carol Jones for the comments that I made via email and which I put on social media. That's done and dusted now. So the thing I was going to say is the furniture, it's not just the benches as well. We need to run a couple more things, more bins, that's the main thing.
Yeah.
And also the comments that were made this week or last week on social media is cycle racks. We used to have a cycle rack on the square, but now that's gone, and the newest one is behind the
That's right.
billboard.
Well, we've been talking about bike racks under item 11. But, yes.
The-
More bins coming.
The more actually, Jane Miles did tell us that there were more bins on order,
Yeah.
but they were waiting for them because there were two-tier bins.
Yeah.
So there's a bin where you can put the cigarettes out on the top, then put that inside, because that's what causes masses of rubbish, and then the ordinary rubbish would go into the bottom half of that bin.
Okay. So, what we need to do really is, yes,
I have already emailed the officer at Dover District.
this is
and
David
Councillor-
Parish.
Yes,
Yes.
so I will report back when I have a response, but I have already sent the email.
You've asked him whether we can have additional
Yes.
benches, about the bins,
Yes.
and maybe bike racks. Have you asked him about
I
bike
haven't
racks?
mentioned bike racks.
Okay, we'll come back to bike racks. Very good, thank you. Okay, so that's all in hand, and we'll report back to the next meeting. Thank you. Item 9, sandwich warming oil. Before you give your report, I just want to say I don't understand what's happened, because for a while you could see the names of the fallen in World War II, and now you can't anymore. And I just don't understand how that has happened, but perhaps you could explain.
Yes, so Cleverly and Spencer were the contractor that were appointed to do the work, and what they've said to me is that bottom plaque was cast differently. It was cast in sand. So they attempted to remove wax from it because they thought that might mean the names were, stand out a bit
Well,
more.
they do.
But that didn't help matters because they said it wasn't satisfactory.
Okay.
So now they've had to, the bronze specialist came back and has put back the coating that should be there. And I appreciate now the names are not as clear as the rest of it. And I think the issue is that now the rest of the plaques are all very clear because they've had a lot of work done to them. This one does stand out. But he said, unfortunately, they've tried, a couple of processes. Say one was removing the wax. They can't do anything more with it. That's because it's different to the others. And the only option you've got is to remove that plaque and replace it with a different block cast to get a different outcome. Because the rest of them were cast very differently. That one was in sand apparently.
I think the thing is that just after the war, wasn't that sort of like 1948 or whatever? And it was just different processes of doing it, but now when everything was short supply, wasn't it? And times are hard. So perhaps we might be able to get some funders come in and have it recast.
Yes, well, I find it very disappointing that you can't read those names. I've been to remembrance services where the names are read out, and to be honest, you couldn't do that now with the Second World War. And that, I don't think that's right. I'm glad to get your support. So perhaps we could ask for an estimate,
Mhm.
because we need to, I mean, before we make a decision, we need to know how much it's going to cost. Was it right?
Is there, I'm not sure, is there funding we could look into, something like Heritage Lottery Fund or
Yeah, I was going to
whoever
say,
deal with the KMS,
British-
war graves and stuff
British
like
War
that.
Graves
Yeah.
Commission.
Or even the British
actually
Legion
make
or
one.
something like
Yes.
that.
Yes,
Yeah.
but we need to know the cost before we,
Yeah.
so if we could get an estimate,
Yeah.
thank you. And it may have to be from other people other than, don't we have to get 3 estimates or something?
Yes, we would do it if the town council are funding that expenditure.
I see.
But if you were looking for funding opportunities, you won't need to do that at the
No,
moment.
no, so we do want to figure, okay. Item 10, visit Kent and Whitecliffe's Countryside Partnership update. Town clerk share verbal report.
Thank you, Chair. So I have been in contact with the Visitor Information Centre at David District Council, and I have arranged to go and do a visit. So I'm going over Tuesday the 19th of September, and I'm going to meet with the tourism team there, and this is to talk about the southeast coast and tourism southeast, and Visit Kent, yes I was right, Visit Kent, and how they work with their partners, and to get an understanding really of what they do and how they promote sandwich, because I'm told there is a lot of information there that I'll be able to have a look at, and obviously get a viewpoint on how they approach sandwich in particular, and feedback to the committee. And I think it'll be a valuable exercise to go over there and meet the tourism team to make that face-to-face contact as well.
Very good. So I think now we get to item 11.
Oh, sorry, Chair, just before we do that,
Yeah.
I've got another appointment in deal, I'm afraid, so I'm going to have to leave you at this juncture. Sorry about that.
Okay, I thought I would try and clarify the long-term work of this committee and what our priorities should be for the next 2 years. And that the 2 years that I have in mind are from January 24 to December 25. And in this paper, I've just outlined some of the issues that I've called signposts. For example, the Town Council's commitment to ameliorate the climate change emergency, the need to ensure the commercial centre of Sandwich remains attractive to residents and to visitors, and so on. My own particular concern is about what we're going to do when we have electric vehicles, because that seems to me to be a big emerging issue which is really going to be problematic for Sandwich, particularly Sandwich North. So then I went through these issues. So the climate change related project, I've referred to the fact that we're already developing a tree planting action plan. And I think that's what's going to emerge out of this walk and out of the work that Councillor Mallet has been doing. I also said that I think we need to develop a much more cycle-friendly town with, for example, many more bike racks located where people can oversee them, because bikes are increasingly electric, increasingly very expensive, I mean thousands of pounds. So people won't come to Sandwich to enjoy sitting in the cafes and so on unless they can actually look at their bike and make certain that nobody's pinching it. So I think we have to pay a lot of attention to bike racks. And I said we need to review the position re-insulation of dwellings, particularly within the conservation area, where currently DEC planning seem to outlaw solar panels and double glazing, even when it's invisible to the naked eye. They do. From my personal experience, they do. And I don't think that should continue. I think they have to recognise the climate that we now live in, and which is, as we all know, worsening by the year, not the month. So I think we need, so So one project might be just talking, to sort of, get eyeballing them and saying, why are you doing this? It cannot continue. So that's one of those are 3 projects there, the tree planting, the bike racks and seed planning.
The bike racks is very difficult, because I live over when we did the last bike rack, and we put the bike racks on the end of the waiting room, and unfortunately someone come out of the new inn, he wasn't drunk, but he had very poor vision, and he didn't know the bikes had been put there, because it's that way, and he fell over and really hurt himself. So they've got to go in the right place.
Absolutely, but we're just talking about setting ourselves as a committee priorities.
Yeah, but we start sort of looking at areas, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah. So the second one, to do with commercial vibrancy, I've said that we should consult with local shopkeepers and restaurateurs, but I don't actually, I've changed my mind about that. I don't think we need to. I'm sure the Tourism Forum will. But what I would like to see is an improvement, radical improvement, to the signage in this town, which is absolutely hopeless. I mean, they look lovely, but can you read them? No. Do they point in the right direction? Not necessarily. So I think we really do have to think about signage. That's another possibility. Parking, I basically said it's too complicated. And anyway, it's not our responsibility. Parking charges is DUC. I don't think we can change their minds about it, about charging here. I think people in both Sandwich North and Sandwich South disagree about parking. I think it's just too complicated. So I've said I don't think we need to bother. I don't think we should get tied up in it.
I think that throughout one parking, there was coach parking and visitor parking.
Ah, yes.
Because I mean, there's a right old job on the quay there, isn't it? And then they have to get round and then they have to reverse back, don't they? And then they do, sometimes they can get in the by the drill hall. But there's a lot of coaches that come in there, so we did talk about it before the Ash Road, didn't we, on the old KCC site?
Yes.
And we discussed it, but
that's part of the local plan, that is the Ash Road site. Yeah, regarding coaches, festival weekend, busiest weekend in the town in the summer, we had a few coaches, quite a few of them were friends of mine actually, and there was cars parked in the coach lanes all weekend, no traffic wardens around, so the coaches blocked them in, because they have to have a legal rest, so they blocked people in.
Okay, well, I think coach parking is a tourism forum.
Yeah,
it is, but sorry, Chair, I think parking is a major problem on the road.
Yes, I know.
But I don't think council should be totally ignoring or sort of dismissing it. I am very concerned about it, because on the way in this evening, someone was talking to me. Now they live at the other end of Woodsborough Road. They are not allowed to buy a parking permit for the town because they're not within the town walls. And they can't get down here, and they bring one's a driver, the person they're bringing quite regularly is not a driver and is disabled. Therefore, they can't apply for the parking ticket, blue badge. It's quite complicated. They're saying that it would be useful. We don't mind buying a ticket to park in the town, but because they're outside the walls, they're not allowed. We've got the other issue where the businesses say that parking costs are really badly affecting people coming into the town, and we did discuss at the town team even the idea of having some sort of parking that was free for a certain amount of time, and then parking costs that you picked up when you left the town rather than when you first get here, which encourages people to stay long because they're not tourists are not so worried then. If they put it in and they think they've only got 2 hours, they're not going to go into that extra shop or for a coffee. So I think parking is quite a major problem that really does need a group that might look at it. And in some areas, apparently, while Dover District Council are people responsible for taking all the money from parking meters, if you wanted, for example, to say at certain times the first 20 minutes was free, well then Sandwich Town Council do have an opportunity to say we'll pick up the cost for that, set against what would have gone to Dover District Council or there. And I'm not saying that's the answer. All I'm saying is that I do believe it is something that really does need to be tackled.
Okay, well, thank you. We'll come back to that. We're going to decide on priorities for the next 2 years.
Sorry, just
Yes.
following on from that, would it make more sense, because it's so linked with DDC, that was addressed by the town council, you know, or discussed at town council meetings rather than Heritage
Yes.
Townscape?
Yes. I mean, what
Well,
do you
it's the
think?
same, it's the same time at town council meetings. That's the idea of these committees. We flash
Yeah.
all out, and then we do recommendations,
Yeah,
and then
I
the town
appreciate
council.
that, but it is a,
Yeah, well, we had 3-hour town council.
yeah, I know,
meeting,
I've been
and
there.
we're running out of time.
Let's
just
let
the
me just go through
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
because I think Mrs. George has been very convincing about how important the issue is, but whether we can do anything about it at this level, I don't know. Attention to the whole of the town of Sandwich. I mean, I've said that we need to look at Sandwich South, and I've suggested that maybe we should have a public meeting. I'm sure parking would be part of what they would bring up. But it concerns me particularly about speeding on the Woodensborough Road and the Deal Road, and whether we could get KCC, because it seems to me that speed bumps, I mean, if you drive into Canterbury, there are speed bumps down the old Dover Road and so on, and I can't see why we shouldn't have speed bumps on the Deal Road and on the Woodensborough Road.
Yeah, so I think for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been working hard on the speeding issues and the parking within Sandwich South. Carol's been working closely with me, obviously with the 20th Plenty schemes up and running now, and we've got the banners out and about the town. I've spoke to DDC on a number of occasions regarding speed bumps in town. They will not entertain it in the Sandwich South ward due to the fact of the damage it causes to the road and cars when they're going over, and also it can cause subsidence to houses as well. So the next alternative that I'm trying to seek at the moment is trying to get chicanes put in there in certain areas. So they have to stop, brake, to slow down to go around the chicane. The other big thing at the moment is parking. There's cars parking so close to each other that if there's a fire or there's an emergency, no emergency vehicles can get down to, such as, for instance, St Bart's Road or Birch Avenue. It's just
Okay,
it's too
so
narrow.
it sounds as though, Councillor Marie, you're tackling this issue
Already.
already.
Yes, very much
Okay, so we could decide that for the moment we leave it to you.
Yes. I do speak to DDC Parking Services regularly, and I'm in contact with KCC Highways and Council Chamber as well to discuss
Right.
alternatives for parking issues. Regarding the parking in the town, over the past 4 years I've been begging DDC, and I think the tables are turning slightly as a new administration, is to try and have a small business Saturday once a month in the town, so all the car parking is free in the car parks, not on street. Off street is the car parks, Game Salts, the Key and the Guildhall. One Saturday a month to support the small businesses in the town and to boost numbers in the town.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mallow.
It's just the speeding. With regard to the Woodensborough Road, you come from Woodensborough, you go up, there's a 40 mile per hour limit, people go up to 40, and I think they're conditioned to sticking at 40 for as long as they can, because you can. Now I would sort of say possibly we might speak to, and I don't mind raising this at Woodensborough Parish Council, that maybe that should be a 30. I do realise that the rules, I think you have to have houses both sides for it to be automatically a 30 mile limit. But for that entire length, we have houses on one side, and in certain areas where, yes, there are pavements, but some areas not really. So I think it would be better to have 30 all the way through. Yes.
Okay. I don't want to pay any attention to the practicalities. I just want to decide on what this committee is going to do. So what I've heard from Councillor Marie is that he's already paying attention
Yeah.
to parking in Sandwich South, so maybe that means we don't have to give it a top priority. Councillor Mallet will be talking to Woodmansborough Parish Council, of which he is a member, about speed restrictions on the Woodmansborough Road. Mr.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I just want to say that the HIP report,
Yeah.
which is kind of not really here,
No,
but
it is,
the HIP report will give you so much more information about what the priorities are for the town, and 90% of people who fill that survey in, speeding was their top priority.
but
So speeding and the HIP report. So what we don't want to do is reinvent the wheel.
no,
Someone needs to
I'm not
look
saying
at the HIP
it,
report.
no,
Yeah?
but this list of priorities is not only about highways.
No, I agree with you.
Okay,
but
so-
just can we
so,
put it
yes.
in? And,
Yes, if we're going to talk about speeding, obviously,
Yeah.
the HIP report is okay. Electric vehicle growth, this is a problem. People are not going to be able to buy brand new cars from 2030 onwards that are fossil fuel. So, this is a major problem for people, many of whom are residents in Sandwich North, where they have no garages, they don't have a right to park outside their house, and I think that's a right problem, that they don't have a right to park outside their house. And it's therefore going to be very, very difficult. Now, I think it might be too difficult for us to consider as a committee because it's so problematic. I don't know that there's anything that we can do about it. Apart from, I had a conversation at the weekend with a man who lives in London, and he said, think about zip cars. That, you know, eventually people are going to have to not drive.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think that 2030 is going to be knocked on the head. It's too far. It's too much.
sorry, but they are actually building cars now. David Silk is someone who would tell you, because we had a discussion, and I couldn't understand why if I had a socket in my bedroom, I could come out and could come down, and if the position of the electric charger in the car was on the top of the car or on the bonnet of the car, it would make a huge difference to people. Because we could charge overnight, for example, and apparently they're now being made.
Yeah, but I don't think
Well, I mean, but this is coming down the line, and this town is going to have to think about it at some point. The other question is about the noise that these cars don't make, so that will mean competition between pedestrians and cars, particularly in the centre of town, will become more dangerous than it already is. So I think we might have to consider this, but it's complicated. The sixth item is the two consultancy reports. The Rummery report, which the main takeaway I suggest is the whole question of pedestrianisation of the town centre, and the key report, which connects up with what Mr. Graham was saying about the Heritage Harbour and developments of heritage moorings, and the key report also suggests that the amount of parking on the quay should be reduced so that leisure activities can take place. So, out of those considerations, I've summarised some projects, and they are under summary and conclusions, and I want us to pick two, at most three of them that we should take forward. A tree planting action plan, the Moat Park proposal, which I think we're now calling the Town Walls proposal. And as I've said, both of these have related funding opportunities, particularly for the Heritage Lottery Fund, for the Town Walls one. Discussion with BBC, planning re-insulation and energy conservation, particularly in the conservation area. Development of more bike racks which are close to Sandwich's amenities. Better signage into and within the town centre. Discussion with KCC highways with speed restrictions and traffic calming in Winnisford Road and Deal Road. Discussion with Stagecoach reinstatement for bus service in the Winnisford Road. Consideration of a community bus and there would be funding opportunities for that. Discussion at committee level initially on the issue of electric vehicle growth and its implications for Sandwich. And this committee should take a lead in a conversation about the two consultants' reports and their implications for the town centre and for the key and more. So, I think we are already doing a tree planting action plan. So that's one that we've already actually picked. The town walls proposal, similarly, I think we've actually picked it, haven't we? Is that the second?
Always the same thing, the other one is.
Oh, it's the same. Okay, let's count that as one.
It's all together.
Okay, one. Then, a discussion with DDC planning with the insulation and energy conservation. That would not take up a lot of time, but we need to do it, I think. And if we combine it with the discussion about getting a piece of equipment.
I think it goes back to what Councillor Tuesday said at the beginning regarding the cameras. I think it's different regarding the north and the south as well. I just think we'll be whistling in the wind. I think I'm afraid of that. I just think that people, if we had a discussion planning and said with insulation, and they said, okay, well, this is what we come up with. Now you've got to pay X, Y, Z amount of money to have that done to your house. If we're not built with the current climate, are going to say, no, thank you, can't afford it.
And that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is insulation and energy conservation without using this equipment. I mean, at the moment, you can't do anything in Sandwich North. You're not allowed to put in solar panels, and you're not allowed to put in double glazing.
The double glazing is local from what I understand. Other district councils allow. Oh, government grants is government. But with regard to
talking about
double
permission.
glazing and what people can do, it varies from district council to district
Yeah,
council.
I think we need to talk to them.
Yeah, Dover is, as I've discovered, because I'm right next to a Grade 2 listed and I'm converting, it is onerous. It is, and some of the thing, it is, and a lot of it I don't understand. Not in the sense of I don't understand the technology or whatever. It's their approach.
Logic.
Yes.
I don't understand the logic.
That's it. I mean, they allow an illuminated sign, but they haven't allowed us to put at the back of our house. The only people who can see the back of our house are us. To put in double glazing, which has gas in between. Nobody would be able to see it, and it's not replacing 19th century glazing, it's 20th century glazing, and they won't allow us to do it.
Leicester Borough Council will allow that.
Yeah, I think we need to talk to DDC about that. So, my favourite ones are the tree planting in the Moat Park, all the town halls together, discussion with DDC, re-insulation and energy conservation, and bike racks. Oh, bike racks and signage, but that's 4 projects.
Signage, that was discussed in the working group, the tourism working group,
Yes.
that DDC were addressing signage, but we haven't had an update about that. We definitely, I know you're going to meet with them, Jill, but I think he represented the White Cliffs. He was I can't remember his name actually, but he spoke at one of those meetings and said that it's all in hand and that all the signage was being looked at, so we could really see where they got with that.
Yes, I have sent an email about that. The town trails, I think they're called, across the district. Yes, and the officer I spoke or emailed today said, well, funnily enough, I'm actually working on the Sandwich photographs and things today, but she said it is down to staff having time to do this because it is extra on top of what they're doing day to day. But I'm certainly going to speak to her next week and have a look at how far they've got And is there any?
Are there going to be gaps?
But actually, that's not the signage that I'm talking about.
Oh, sorry.
Because what I mean by signage, and I agree it's ambiguous, I mean the signposting.
Okay.
I think that's what they were talking
Finger-
about.
Maybe-
finger boards.
I think they were talking about these boards,
Mm,
but we need to be clear about
yeah,
that.
clarify what they meant.
Because what I think is wrong, doesn't work properly, are the signposts, which look nice, but you can hardly read them, and a lot of them point in the wrong direction.
Is that the finger post?
It's the finger board, yeah.
Yeah, I'm missing it, aren't they?
Yes.
So,
So,
can I suggest that you said you were going to do a walk about the town, but if you're walking around the town, surely that's the place when you spot where the bike rack should go, and also where signage is and it's wrong, or where you would like signage. You could sort of make a note of that as you walk around
Yeah.
the town.
that's a very good idea. Okay, shall we pick? Anybody got any ideas? Because I want to finish this meeting.
I mean, Councillor, I'm quite happy to have the KCC highways regarding speed restrictions kept, because the town's been doing a lot of work as well, and we're trying to bring back speed watch as well, and see if we can get our new PC Nethawks to come down with the specials to do some speed monitoring around the town. So if we keep that out, and I can update the committee if you're happy with that as much as we can.
I'm a trained speed watch operative.
But we do have.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry,
Yeah,
that's right. We actually have a speed watch group, volunteers group,
Yeah.
and it's led by Simon Byers
Yeah.
from the town team. He's also done an awful lot of investigation with respect to cameras. There's other areas, other counties will accept speed cameras. They're special because they account for the strange shapes of our roads. And KCC wouldn't even bring in the
No.
supply. Now, I think there's an awful lot of work that has already been done. There's a lot of information there, including we have to have the guy from KCC come down to usually train everybody. So maybe we get Simon to write a good report so you can see what's already happened, if that would help.
Yes.
And then it can be picked up from there. Because speeding is most definitely, and it's not, I'm sorry, it's not just the Windsor Road.
No, it's.
You've got to do,
Mm.
it's the whole of
Okay,
this
okay,
town.
okay.
So,
So,
Mayor, can I make a suggestion of the Heritage Townscape Committee take lead on the constant, what's the word, about the two consulting reports? Does that ring?
yes, I think that will be very time consuming.
Can I just suggest that what we need to do, because I think these are all reasonable suggestions, I don't think it's about picking one or two and then just parking others. I think back to my point right at the start of the meeting, if we get these into a view, a forward look, a tracker, and then we allocate individuals, we've got 10 people around the table here in terms of this committee, and actually some things are already being done, some are obvious owners in terms of some of the things that are being presented tonight, and actually allocate one or two people to each item, and some may not get done immediately, but we manage it as a programme of work, because if you, as just mentioned by Dean, the key is really important in terms of their future opportunity, but it's a massive piece of work. How you can then sort of say, well, no, we'll do bike racks instead. Criteria, I'm just really struggling with, because I think they're all reasonable. Some might take 2 years, some might take 2 weeks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's very helpful then. We don't have to spend a great deal of time arguing over which priorities. So if everybody agrees that these are the, however many there are, didn't count them, that we look at every meeting,
10.
and somebody takes ownership for each one. We won't sort that out now.
I think between now and next meeting, it's
Yes.
into a table, visual, and then people can think about, actually, I'd like to be involved
Yes,
in that, or I am already. And
yes,
then we can, next meeting, agree that's taken forward.
yes. Okay.
Can we have parking then to this list? Because we
Yes, I
discussed it.
I think that we do.
Let's put in part. Yes.
The insulation and energy conservation, it's just struck me. with the 2030 removal of carbon fuel cars, at much the same time as removal of gas boilers,
Yes,
with the assumption that you're going to put in air source heat pumps.
yes,
Air source heat pumps assume you are insulated. Otherwise, waste of time and money. So anybody in Sandwich North, where their boiler goes wrong, they are up the creek without a paddle.
absolutely,
Okay.
yes, thank you for reminding me, because, I mean, that is another issue, air source heat pump, and of course they make a little bit of a noise. And I could just see neighbours. And so okay, let's add in ground source heat pumps.
I don't think it's going to happen.
They have got a new way of doing it by converting certain boilers to. I'm just being through.
I mean, it's my long-term.
I think they were doing on the wheel for 2030. I think
It's there.
yeah.
Okay, so I think we've managed to get there. We've aired some of the issues, and Jill has valiantly kept all the minutes. So our next meeting is October the 9th.
Sorry, one more.
One more.
Oh, one more.
Item
Yes,
12.
the local plan examination.
Oh yes, sorry. You were going to tell us.
Well, I'll keep this brief. I think hopefully you've had an opportunity to read the information there. There has been an appointment of the inspectors, and it's over a 4-week period. The session's open on the 14th of November. It's a Tuesday at 10 a.m. And as the chair said earlier, I will be reporting at the STC meeting, or back to this committee if you prefer,
No,
on
back
the
to
STC, when the sandwich related days are. So that, that will be recorded. Yeah.
Yes.
That's brief.
Thank you. And we meet on Monday the 9th of October, and before then we will have sorted out who's going to look after it.
Send it out so we can come back before the meeting, I think. That's
Yeah.
what I'll be happy to
We
do.
want to do it in Saturday, don't we?
Yes.
Mm.
Okay, thank you.
Meeting closed.
Meeting.